Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here to talk about some of my favourite book covers so far from 2025. This is going to be me reflecting on the books I have read in the first 6 months of 2025, so from January to the end of June. Some of these are 2025 releases, some of them are not, some of them are backlist titles. We are going to be talking about middle grade titles, some non-romance titles, and then I have a couple of categories of romance books that I've broken covers up into because there are a few ways that romance covers are generally categorized. Everything in this video is subjective, it is entirely my opinion. It is also not going to include reviews of the book or what is inside the book, because I'm literally just going to be talking about what appeals to me on these front covers. If you have followed my channel for a number of years, you may have seen me talk about book covers in the past. A couple of years ago, I did one where I really broke down what I liked and disliked about illustrated covers in the romance genre. That video was fairly well received, and I had initially planned on doing a little mini series. I think I was going to talk about photo romance covers, etc. Life happened and whatever happened, and I just didn't get around to doing it. But I thought this is a way to sort of talk about what I like in book covers in a very manageable way. So if you do enjoy it, feel free to let me know that down below. Alrighty, we are going to go through a couple of categories. We're going to start with middle grade and just work our way down to romance, because I probably have more to say about romance than anything else.
Editing Steph here, and I do want to point out that obviously I'm referring here to people who do not have any kind of vision impairment, because obviously if you have a vision impairment, there's going to be different information that you take in about a book. But those of us that are able to see covers or any kind of visual marketing tool, we are so surrounded by visual imagery that it does have an impact on the way that we engage with any kind of material, be it books or signage or anything like that. So I am aware that this is very geared towards people who do not have vision impairments. So please keep that in mind.
I have quite a few of the physical books, but there's also a couple of books that I can't find my physical copies of, so I'm just going to have to talk about them with the digital cover on the screen. Sort of going in the chronological order in this case. Willowdean by Catherine Applegate, I've talked about. This is a book I loved, and I love this cover as well. And the reason that I love this cover is that every time I look at it, I notice something different, because the first time I picked it up, I didn't pay any attention whatsoever to the cover. I had no idea what was going on, and it sat on my shelf for 18 months and I'd never actually deeply looked at the front cover. And then having read the book, the cover has an even bigger impact. Like, I recognized when I bought it the little fuzzy furry little critter here that I absolutely adored, and I knew there were eyes. I didn't realize that these were tusks. I was just not paying attention, and that this is a super close-up of the face of one of the creatures that features in this book. Also, not that this is the front cover, this is the back cover, but these trees with the lights, they're also really important in the story. So that gives me a deeper appreciation for how this entire cover has been put together. But what I do like is that, yes, it's a very cute, gorgeous middle grade sort of cover, but you actually have to pay attention to it. Like, you actually have to look closely at it to realize what it is. And current me just, wonders how past me could be so oblivious. But I do love the illustration style on this. It's very whimsical, it's very gorgeous, and it fits the tone of the book perfectly. Another book that I really like the cover of is Spirit of the Crocodile by Aaron Fayoso and Michelle Scott Tucker with Lynn White. This is the Torres Strait Islander middle fiction book I reviewed earlier in the year. The thing I love about this one, I love the colors. I like the contrast of those colors. I also like how it's built in layers, so that you have what is essentially our foreground of our characters, the sea behind them, the crocodile hidden in here. The crocodile is important in this story mostly as a family totem, but to have that sort of here and not a big overly front and center thing, I think is a really good representation of how the crocodile is used in the story. Having the layers of the moon and then the sky, like, it just all fits. And also nothing's in a straight line, everything's kind of wavy, and the font also reflects that. So, like, to me, very visually appealing. A book cover that's probably not as detailed as any of the other ones here, but I'm going to talk about it anyway, just because I think, again, it is also very representative of the story, is A Snake Falls to Earth by Darcy Littlebadger. This is actually quite a simplistic cover, really, when you think about it. It's just one, well, it looks like one character in the middle of a very plain background. So our character stands out, so that's important. This is one of our main characters. But we actually have two characters here. The snake is also a character. This is the Cottonmouth Kid. And because this is the story of when two worlds collide, thinking about it now, it's really interesting. And I also like how the bottom of her skirt also follows the pattern of the snake. Again, contrasting colors, it stands out. Like, it's eye-catching. And then the last one I'm going to talk about, which is one of the more recent ones I've read, is Little Bones. Now this one, again, I think is a little bit different. It is still intricate. It still has a lot of details from the story, but I think you have to look really, really closely to pick up on most of them. I really love this design centering the bones of the bird, which is a character in the story. Then you have all of these little creepy, crawly critters hidden within the design, which is, again, representative of the story. You have these moon designs, so the phases of the moon, again, also very important in the story, set on this really lovely sort of dark navy blue-ish background with the faux gilded edges, which makes it kind of look like it's an old-fashioned book, also a fantasy-ish story. Like, it's just very interesting to look at. And I think it's just very well proportioned for what it's doing. All right, so those are my middle fiction books. Then moving into some non-romance books. How have I broken this up? Oh, I've got a couple of Black First Nations books. Okay, let's go through these. We'll start off with Black and Black fiction. So there is Unlimited Futures, which is a speculative visionary Black and Black fiction anthology that I talked about a lot earlier in the year because I read it for the Buzzwordathon. I love this cover. It's really striking. I love the contrasting colors, and I love just the very simple pattern on the cover. I think it is extremely striking. When you see it, you just go, that's interesting. I've got a real thing about colors. And the other one I want to mention, and this one is very different from the first one, is Gawimara Gathering by Janine Lean, which is a poetry collection by this author. She is an Indigenous poet, but I am such a sucker for Australian botanicals and Australian native plants, and this whole thing just appeals to me. I also like that it's simple, but it does take up the majority of the page. The title is down here in this little gap that's been left here. I think that's just, it's very visually balanced, but also the colors, the light colored background, the bright green gum leaves, and the pink of the flowers. I just think it works really well. Okay, some other non-romance books. Watermoon by Samantha Soto Yumbao. This is still one of my favorite covers of the year, but again, it's a book that is probably not going to make my favorites list at all, even though I had such high expectations for it. But just the cover itself is, again, very visually appealing. I like that we have the sky and the sea, but we have the world above and the world below, and the fact that this book is about parallel worlds. I like the title going down the page. I think it is very visually appealing. I even like the white border, and also having the origami boats coming off the main image into the border. Like, to me, that's really cool. It's very visually appealing. I would want this as an art print. Also, I'm a sucker for blues, purples, and pinks because I think that's just a really nice, calming color combo, and I'm always drawn to it. Then we have some translated fiction, and I think these books always have very enticing covers, and they're supposed to be cozy. But again, like, none of these are books that have hit 5 stars for me, but I still love the covers, and so I kind of can't bear to part with the books at the moment because I'm still attached to the actual look of the books. There is The Rainfall Market by Yu Yong Guang. I just love the moodiness of this. Like, it's so gorgeous. Again, contrasting colors, blues, oranges, and reds and yellows. The fact that you have the raining sky over this very inviting little storefront, it appeals to me. Like, this was a total cover buy. I saw this and I bought it because of the cover, because I'm that person. I should say, I didn't say this at the start. Typically, if I go to a bookstore and I purchase a book, it's usually not a romance because I don't typically go to bookstores to buy traditionally published romance because I'm really picky. I browse other sections in the store. I've talked about this a lot. And I will cover buy things. I did it last year. With Samantha Harvey's book Orbital. I saw the cover and I just bought it. I had no idea what it was. It was in the totally wrong section of the bookstore. It was in the sci-fi section. It should have been in Litfic. But I still bought it because of the cover. Turned out it was a really good book and I really enjoyed it. But, you know, same sort of thing. Very visually appealing book. And I will pick it up with no information about the book whatsoever. Another one that I picked up earlier in the year was The Full Moon Coffee Shop. And this is by Mai Mochizuki. Again, I like the contrasting red, black. I like the gold foiling detail. I like the circle in the center. It just feels inviting and I want to know more about what's going on. Also, the little cats on here are absolutely adorable. But yeah, like, it's just inviting. Moving on, let's do When Women Were Dragons. I think this cover is incredible because there is so much detail hidden in it. I love the green. I love the purple. I love that stands out. I love how the title is sort of interwoven into the design. So there's a very specific very specific foliage design, and hidden within it, you can start to see the dragons that I mentioned. And this is one of my favorite books of the year. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since I read it. I just love how there's so many hidden details in it. This was a book that I did pay a lot of attention to when I first looked it up, and before I read it, I spent a lot of time looking at the front cover and just being, oh my gosh, I can't wait to read this. I can't wait to read this. And of course I saved it for a very specific purpose and time to read it, which was great. But just how the dragon blends in seamlessly to the background makes my heart happy. Well, let's do some sci-fi. First one I want to talk about is The Deep Sky. This one, this is an older title. I just love the contrast of the black and the colors woven through it, and the fact that it just looks like a sci-fi book. Like, that's all I can say, but like it's very visually appealing. I like the swirls across the page. There's, you know, references to the story within the front cover, but just the colors and the way that it's so striking, the contrast between the black and the colors. Just, I'm a color person. Colors that just catch my attention will always draw me in. Then, honestly, this was another cover buy in a bookstore, was Toward Eternity by Anton Herk. After I bought it, I heard a lot about the book and I was really excited to read it, but this was totally a cover buy because I just love this cover. It is a take on the floral covers of a lot of books, but there's just something a little weird about these florals and just a little bit otherworldly. And then you start to notice that there's a moon in the background and maybe another moon here, and what's going on, and, you know, what does this all mean? Coupled with the title being front and center, I saw it and I picked it up. I think I read maybe the first paragraph just to make sure that I would like the writing style. But that was all I did. Like, I didn't take in the details of the blurb or anything like that. I literally picked it up because this book is gorgeous. And it's also a really good book too. And then there's Floating Hotel, which again, this was a book that I think I saw someone review and I saw the cover and I'm like, that's gorgeous. I like this very painting style cover. I love the colors of it. I love the design of the ship as well. I think it's really interesting, and the fact that the ship is pointing up. So it feels like it's traveling across the page, which gives that sense of movement because this is a book about a ship that is traveling through space. And then just the little trajectory courses and the little gold details on it. Loved it. Another one where I think they've done a really good job with gold foiling as highlights is The Favourites by Lane Fargo. I knew that this book was going to be sort of more contemporary fiction than I tend to generally read, but I was intrigued, one by the premise, but also by the cover. Now, I think the US cover is more golden. I prefer this cover. I love lots of colors on my cover. So this really appealed to me. It's really gorgeously put together. And I love just the gold sparkles on here, like ice or snow or whatever you want to call it. And that it's just kind of falling down the page. I think it's just very well put together. It's a very striking photo cover, but the photo is actually muted by the fact that you've got the color overlay over the top and the gold. So it doesn't feel too overdone. I just love this cover. It may possibly be one of my favorite covers of the year. And then another cover that I want to mention, I don't have a physical copy of this because I listened to the audiobook, is Word Slut. And that's just because I love type and print, and I love covers that play with that. I've talked about this before. I love picture books that play with that as well. They use print to actually create images. It's really striking. Again, it's the black, white, and red, so it's very visually appealing. Also, when you look deeper, you begin to see all of the words that are talked about within the book and the text as being words that people are trying to reclaim in the name of feminism. So I think it's just very interesting to look at. Alrighty, then moving into romance. My first category is romance with photographs on the cover, or, you know, real people. And I don't actually have any physical copies of these. The first one I was going to talk about is Not Catching Love. Now, I do have the illustrated cover of this, and the only reason I bought this one and not the photo cover, which is here, which is actually my preferred cover for this particular book, because I just think this cover represents the book really well. I have the entire series in the illustrated covers, so I'm a completionist in that way. One, I think this cover model really represents the character from the book, but also I just love the paint splatters and the colors of it, because again, it's one representative of the book, but also it's just very eye-catching. The blue in particular stands out really well. I think I read it when I was reading books that were blue. To me, it's just super eye-catching, and then the other pops of color just make everything else stand out. So I really like that cover. And then the other covers that I like, which is a photograph cover, but it doesn't feature people, is N.R. Walker's Storm Boy series. I actually have pre-ordered these to pick them up at Rare because I love these covers so much, because they feature just photographs of lightning and storms, and that's just something that I adore and I love. At some point, all of my prints up here will probably be replaced with some kind of storms or nature photography, because I love it that much. But I feel like these perfectly represent the story as well, in terms of we're following characters who are storm chasers, and I don't know, I feel like the very block type text for the title coupled with the colors of the photographs just For me, they're very visually appealing. Then we are going into illustrated romance covers. I have lots of thoughts on these. I absolutely prefer a more detailed illustrated cover. There are some covers that do okay with the no-face characters, whatever, like the Emily Henry kind of style covers, but I definitely prefer things that are far more detailed and actually show the characters. One, because I don't visualize, like I can't visualize, I don't see anything in my head. So to me, it helps just kind of give a sense of who the characters are, because even if an author describes it, I'm just like generic person in my brain. I don't know what you're saying. Like it means nothing to me. So a really well-designed cover. Same thing with the photographs. Like if an author's chosen a cover model for their cover, like that really helps me. Same thing with the illustrate covers. I also have a real thing about the size and the placement of characters on the cover in terms of what to me feels balanced, etc. So I'm going to give some examples. I think we're just going to start off with MF stories and then move into some queer stories, because I have quite a few in that category. The first one I want to mention is Whirlwind by Kayla Gross, which is just a fun little sort of storm chasing, tornado chasing romance. This is one where I'll say I don't mind that the characters are smaller because you've got the tornado in the background and it's kind of a whole thing, but I like how across the page your eye is visually drawn from one corner to the next, from the characters to the tornado in the background. To me that works. Also, a lot of detail in this front cover. It's really well illustrated. I've talked about it before, but I think Chloe Lisa's covers, particularly for the Wilmot Sisters series, have been really on point. This is Once Smitten, Twice Shy. I love the pink background. I love that our characters are front and center. It's kind of that clinch cover, but it's illustrated. There is detail with the roses in the background. It just feels really lovely. Like it feels like a romance book. I probably should have put this book second just because it relates kind of to the same visual elements of Whirlwind, but All Superheroes Need PR by Elizabeth Stevens. Again, has the image traveling from the bottom corner of the book cover to the top of the book cover, and you get that sense of movement and scope. So the characters are really small, and this is the only time when I like characters being really small, because it leads into a bigger image across the page. I like that. Also, I like the pink because I'm a pink fan. The next book I'm going to mention is A Love Most Fatal by Kath Richards. I have the alternate cover, which was available on Kath's website. I also really love the original cover for it. I'll just pop it here. But I love this. It feels very romantic. This is a mafia romance, but it's a fun mafia romance story. She's the mafia boss, and I just love it. It just feels very classy. I love the red. It feels like a romance book, and it feels like the couple actually have a connection. Another one, and initially I thought I preferred the US cover for this book, but I actually 100% prefer this cover, and my front cover is damaged. I'm really sad about that. It is Unromanced by Erin Connor. I just love this. I love that they're in the elevator. I love the way that he is looking at her and the way that she's kind of looking at him from the corner of her eye. I think there is a lot of detail. It still feels like a romance. I love the contrast between the yellow and the purple. The whole thing just works for me. And the last one I want to mention before I jump into some romances is Last Chance to Save the World by Beth Revis, which is it does lean more sci-fi with a romantic subplot, and it ends on him chasing her forever. So it doesn't end in an HEA or an HFN, but it's implied. I just love the way that this one has our character silhouettes on either side of the page, and then you have a very striking, colorful background that gives hints at the sci-fi story here. So you know these two characters are connected, but they're connected by the basic plot of the story. To me, that just works. And it's been the same sort of design through the whole trilogy, and it really, really works. Then Beneath the Indigo Sky by Rain Hawthorne. I love this cover because I love the aurora in the background. This is a contemporary romance with a paranormal-ish kind of spin to it, best way I can describe it. But I love that aurora in the background, and I love that our two main characters are back to back. In a lot of ways, that feels even more intimate for a romance cover. I think it's really well done. I love that they're centered for it. I don't think it would work as well if they were off center or smaller. Their placement is just spot on. Then we have Rookie Recovery by Lex Easton and Gemma Croft. To me, this works just as well as Beneath the Indigo Sky, except, this time they're kissing, so they're facing each other. I love that they're front and center. I love that they take up the majority of the page. I love that you can see and tell that there is an ice rink in the background, because this is a hockey romance, but it's blurred, so it's not the main feature, so they're not getting lost in it. Like, their romance is front and center. That works for me. Again, lots of blues. Same thing with The Shots You Take by Rachel Reed. They're front and center. They take up the majority of the page. The rest of it is just kind of background, and it doesn't interfere with the image. They look and feel like a couple. It works for me. There is Royal Salute by Evie Mitchell, which actually has two covers. There is the sweet cover, and then there is the Not Safe for Work cover. I prefer the Not Safe for Work cover, but I tend to use the sweet cover generally, but I like both of them because our characters are front and center. They're both doing different things. I like that the Sweet cover, they're facing each other and that they're really close and it's a close-up of their faces. And I like that the Not Safe for Work cover shows the connection between the two characters. Also, the Not Safe for Work one is much darker in terms of the color palette because it's a lot of stolen moments for them. So again, that's also really important. And also we have Pucking Strong by Emily Rath. I don't have my physical copy yet because it hasn't been released yet. I love the illustrated cover for these. Again, they're front and center. Their relationship is central to the story, so that's what we get. But there's also a lot of detail in the artwork for the covers, so you get a sense of these characters. And lastly, I have romances, but there are no people on the cover. So one, this, and I don't know if I've talked about this before, but I'm reading the Seattle Serpent series by Tegan Hunter. I really like this design. There are people covers. I'm not a huge fan of them, but this design where it has the Seattle skyline in sort of a watercolor design in different colors, plus a nod to hockey on the cover and the title. It's not my favorite cover in the world, but in terms of comparison between this and the photo cover, this is definitely a favorite. And I also just, you know, I like the very simple color palette in here. Each of the books have a different color theme. And I think that works really well, particularly if you're collecting books in a series. And then the last two books are from the same series. It's the Emily Wilde books I read, books 2 and 3 this year. I love them. I love that they have a very specific color palette, so green and pink. The first one was cream. I love that they have a lot of nature features around here. These are the UK covers. I love that we have the gold foiling and it just feels very whimsical, which I think is perfect for the story and the series itself. Like, I think they fit beautifully. You know you're going to get some kind of cozy fantasy story. They don't really say much in terms of the visual appeal on the romance in the story, but it is fantasy forward. And then the romance is kind of the subplot between the main characters. So I think that's fine. But yes, these appeal to me because all of the designs kind of just highlight the title, which I think is the most important thing. So yes, those are some of the covers that I have really enjoyed this year. So I think I've talked about 30 books out of like 364 or whatever that I'd read between January and June. As always, like, these are my preferences. These are the things that I like. I'm interested in knowing in the comments, what's a book that has a cover that you like, and just maybe specify whether it is a US or a Commonwealth kind of cover because they tend to be different. Thanks so much for watching. If you don't want to leave me a comment, feel free to leave your current favorite emoji down below. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you're in the world, you're staying safe and healthy. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, everyone.